Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. The first sets of Magic ever printed. You'd think that in the 32 years of Magic the Gathering's existence, every card in these sets would see its due respect, and a good level of play for its power level. But I don't think that this is the case, and I've got a card that exemplifies just that. Lure is a 3-mana green aura which enchants a creature, and that reads that all creatures able to block the enchanted creature must do so. On its surface, this effect doesn't sound too powerful, only really worth playing in a Blocking Matters deck, and that's about the end of it. But no. This card is far more powerful than that. Of course, it does have a whole bunch of synergistic applications in specific decks that really make it excel, but what I really want to highlight right now is that this card is just fantastic generally. See, the power in this card is kinda hidden in what the card implies and doesn't say. If all creatures that the attacked player controls are blocking one guy, unless they're the unfathomably based Entangler player, that means that there's nothing left to block the rest of your board, essentially granting you a form of Unblockable for everything else. And well, in green, a colour full of all sorts of options for tokens and stompy strats, as well as one that will often have a spare creature like a Farhaven Elf or Wood Elves lying around to enchant, this card is absolutely deadly. And sure, unless the enchanted creature survives the combat in some way, it's generally a one-and-done effect, enough to take out one player and that's it. But frankly, that's often enough. And also, regrowth and Ewit exists. Green isn't exactly graveyard avoidant. I'm sure you wouldn't have a hard time using it again, if you so wish, which you would, because this card is great. And hey, if my convincing that this card is great generically isn't enough for you, which I don't know how, it's nigh unblockable in green, it's bug nutty, but go off I guess, then how about the specific decks where this thing actually has synergy, these decks that absolutely love this thing and which are the primary reason this thing actually has put up some decent numbers on places like EDH Rec. Of course, the obvious place for this is the Blocking Matters decks that I alluded to before, your General Marholtz and Ansrags of the world, where this thing is just the bread and butter of the strategy and goes absolutely ham. But also it sees play in a good chunk of Death Touch and Death Touch adjacent decks, which also absolutely adore it, with it putting up numbers in Finn, Shelob, Ronus, and it essentially functions in these decks as a kind of supercharged removal spell, especially with the new multi-blocking rules which were added in Foundations. And beyond even the obvious ones, Lure synergizes with a good number of strategies which often don't find their home in green, like Monarch and Brash Taunter decks, with commanders like Jared Carthalion and Waiter respectively, both finding some real value in running these cards. Honestly, despite the effects being kind of polar opposites, Lure actually shares a lot of aspects with its ABU brother, Fog, in that they're both green cards from the start of the game, which are criminally underplayed in Commander, despite having effects that mess up combat so bad that if played correctly, they can just end games. And I'm saying that Fog, a card with 5 times the play rate of Lure, is underplayed. You can kind of see where this stands, and I'm not for that. And at this point you might be thinking, okay, Steve, this is great and all, the attack effect is really good, all of that, but it is an aura, which means it is quite vulnerable, especially for a big finisher that you're saying will be great and will take out a player. They could destroy the enchantment or the creature. And I'm like, yes, that is a downside, I have to admit that is a downside, but it also brings me on to what is one of the best parts of this card. Because it's from Alpha, and the effect was strong, it has had plenty of iterations in the 3 decades hence. Say you like this effect and want it in the form of an instant or sorcery. Roar of Challenge and friends. How about an equipment? Nemesis Mask. Want it just natively on a creature? Taunting Elf, among several others, has you covered. Or maybe you're looking for some more flexible options. Sheenan of Life's Roar functions just like Taunting Elf, except it can be channeled to give a creature the lure effect for a turn while dodging counterspells. Or maybe you look upon the Tarask, which for the cost of a couple of extra mana staples Lure and Fog together and then turns the dial on both up to 11. Or even Tempting Licid takes a turn to get going, sure, but then it can turn itself into a lure-esque aura, which can then turn itself back into a creature at instant speed as a special action before the enchanted creature dies, making it repeatable just by itself. Like, the list of these different extra lures goes on. Overall, lure effects are a fantastic way to just suddenly cheat a game win in green, and whether you're playing Sheenan, Licid, or simply the OG, looking at running a lure or two in your green decks certainly will not lead you astray.